Alright, everybody. Syncratic. I'm back. You guys want to be wizards? Comfy wizards? Making all kinds of awesome stuff? Well, we're going to build this. This is my workflow. It took me months to build this correctly, to make it actually work. But right now, we're going to start with the basics. This is going to take a few videos to get through before we build all of this out. So we're going to load the default. And as we go through this, I'm going to explain to you how absolutely every piece of it works. But right now, this is your checkpoint loader. This loads your checkpoints. I have an absolute ton of them, and they're all pretty good. Really, it's kind of hard to go wrong with a checkpoint. There's just different checkpoints that are good at different things. Like some are good with anime, and some are good with realism. That being said, I would recommend installing Comfyui in Pinocchio. Like this program right here is Pinocchio. There's tons of tutorials on installing Pinocchio. I'm not going to go through that because it's really easy. It's just download and install Pinocchio, go to the Discover page, type in Comfy UI, and you'll see Comfy UI. Just click on this and there'll be a little button to download and you can install it from there. Mine's already installed, so there's no need for me to install it. So I'm going to go back to the web UI and we're going to keep going. This is a clip text encode. This, as you can probably tell, clip text encode. So this is it's along the clip pipeline. You can see the pipeline right here from clip to the clip text encode to the positive in the K sampler. This is for your positive things, the things that you want to add when you're building something. So in this case, it says beautiful scenery, nature, glass bottle, landscape, purple galaxy bottle. That's what's going to come out the other end of this. Right here comes from the clip to the clip text encode to the negative. This is going to be all the things you don't want. So you don't want text, you don't want watermarks. As you can see right here, text, watermark. Two things you don't want. Fair enough. So to make things a little bit simpler, we'll move these around a little bit. Right here, your VAE. That is your variational autoencoder. That tells Comfy what to take and break down into noise, or no, my webcam is reacting to my hands. Anyway, that tells Comfy what to break down into noise so that the model can remake it into something else. So your variational autoencoder goes into your decode from here to decode the image. Now, if you were doing, say, a picture to another picture, or what we would call image to image, you would first encode that and then send it through the latent right here, and then you would decode it and it would come out the other side. I'll do that in this video. It's very, very simple. But we got to go through the basics first before building out the ridiculous monstrosity that I've created. So right here is your latent. This just basically tells it the size. How big is the thing that you want to create? And it works in pixel space. So 512 by 512 is going to give you a 512 by 512 image. Batch size of 1, it's going to only give you 1. So that would be my echo going off. Awesome. That there is it done? No, it's not done. Okay. Awesome. If I could get it to not repeat itself, if Amazon's listening, make it not repeat itself. That would be fantastic. I heard it the first time. Anyway, so right now it's going to spit out image with a width and height of 512 pixels. It's going to spit out one of them. It's going to try to create a beautiful scenery of nature that's a glass bottle landscape with in a purple galaxy bottle. That's what it's going to try to do. So we talked about the latent, the clip text encode, and the clip pipeline. We talked about the variational auto encoder pipeline. And we talked about the model, or the checkpoint loader that loads your models. So the model is also its own pipeline. It goes from the model to model into the K-sampler, because the K-sampler needs a model to do anything. It doesn't know how to do anything without a model telling it what to do. So we're going to run this real quick. Shouldn't take but a second. Now it's loading Ghost Mix, which is a neat little... It's a neat model. I like Ghost Mix. And it creates 2 galaxy bottles and a windowsill with a tree. So it's sticking to the prompt pretty good. There doesn't seem to be any watermarks or text. So let's give it a slightly more complicated text. So ghost in a crab shell. Let's see what it does with that. Not bad. Not bad. It's more of an eggshell, and there's weird crab, egg, jellyfish creatures and sticks. Let's see. Hairy bird. Let's see if it can make a hairy bird. It made a woman, a bird woman with hair. Neat. So it's not always going to make exactly what you want it to make. You're going to have to learn how to talk to it, because giving it vague stuff like this, it's going to be vague. It's not going to know exactly what you want, and it's going to start creating random stuff. Like if I click K-sampler again, well, now it's actually a bird with hair. Let's click it again. Now it's a bird person again. Now it's another type of bird person. That's actually kind of cool. That's very anime. But again, Ghost Mix is kind of an anime model. Let's give it a different one. Let's give it counterfeit. And it'll load the model. It'll send the model to the K-sampler. And counterfeit spit out this 4-winged hairy bird thing. A little bit different. You can even tell the art style is different. So that's your basic create an image. Now, if you want to take that a step further, you can do image to image. So what we'll do is we'll unplug the latent, because we don't need this anymore. Just set it over here. What we're going to do is we're going to take the VAE, drag it out here, let it go. And this will give you a list of things that you can do. Now, there are a great deal more things that you can do that are not on this list. But for now, let's stick with the list. In this case, you want to encode. And what it's going to ask for is pixels. It wants something to encode, because it won't do anything if you just encode nothing. So we'll drag off of here, and we'll go to load image. It wants to load an MP4. Let's load Black Widow. Why not? So now it's going to take everything from this picture, including the width and the height, or at least it should, and it's going to try to remake it into something else. So in this case, that's Scarlett Johansson. Now, the model's probably not going to know what Scarlett Johansson is or who Scarlett Johansson is, so Viking woman in heavy armor. All right. See what that does. So it made a Viking woman in heavy armor. And it made it in the roughly same orientation. Not quite. It's quite a bit different. But it took this image and it made an image out of it. Not always going to be really exact when it comes to image. Like, you can take a sketch and flesh it out a little bit better that way if you're an artist that's looking to make things a little bit easier. So, cool. There's a Viking woman, and she's wearing heavy armor. It did exactly what was asked of it. Is it the greatest? No, it's kind of mushy and not the best looking thing. So what can we do? Well, this is a very, very basic setup. So first, we're going to color code this as red. We're going to color code this as green. So it's easy to remember. This is the positive and this is the negative text prompt. If that is not enough, you can right click on it and you can go to title and you can write positive. So positive encode prompt, and then negative encode prompt. There we go. Simple. All right. So we're going to do some wizarding here. This super basic. Not doing what we want it to do. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a control net. So we're going to just use a simple apply control net. We're going to pull this out and grab a control net loader. And we're going to take this same image, put it into the control net. What we're going to do, don't be intimidated by the amount of control nets I have. There's tons of them and they will all make sense in time. What we're going to do is use depth. Depth is usually pretty safe. And then we're going to take this guy right here, the positive conditioning, and we're going to run the control net through the positive conditioning pipeline, because control nets run on the conditioning pipeline. They give the model conditions. So, like, think of it as if you're driving around, you have certain conditions that have to be met. There's stoplights, and you have to stop at a stoplight. And there's, street lights that tell you whether to slow down or stop or go. Control net's conditioning. It gives the model conditions. In this case, the conditions that it's using is depth. So what it's going to do is it's going to take a depth map of this picture. And it's going to basically reproduce her stance, because the depth map is going to tell it what's in the foreground and what's in the background, and it's going to condition the model to conform to the depth of the image. We'll see if it'll work, because it should. And there we go. We have depth conditioning. It is now her same pose. So that's neat, right? She's got the same pose. Still a Viking woman in heavy armor. We got some weird stuff going on over here, but hey, you know, it's fine. Switch over to an SDXL model. Because right now we're using SD15, and SD15 is made for small images. I have a feeling that the problem we're having here is that this needs an SDXL model because the image itself is more than 512 by 512. Let's run this real quick and see what it does. It's going to take it a little bit longer to load an SDXL model. They're about twice the size. Shapes cannot be multiplied. Okay, well that's a good example of a very common error that you will run into. Shapes cannot be multiplied is caused by the control net not being right for the model. So this, in this case, needs the SDXL control net because we're using an SDXL model. Now, what I had in there was the SD15 control net. That obviously doesn't work. They're incompatible. So now it should work. Now it should work just fine. Shouldn't be a problem at all. Yep, and there it goes. And mush. It doesn't always come out good. Why it's mush, I don't know. So let's try a different SDXL model. Let's use colorful. See if this comes out as mush. There are models that prefer specific sampling types and things like that, and they'll make mush. Yeah, and we've got mush. Okay. I have an idea of why this is happening. Let's unplug this image. And we're going to double click to open this up and type in depth. So, depth anything is a control net preprocessor. And it just helps the control net understand what it's looking at. So, we're going to plug that in. We're going to run it again. That goes on the image pipeline. So, image, 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 image. Because it's one of your inputs. You can input images, you can input videos. We'll get into video later. Right now, simple. Super simple. This is, you can call it Wizarding 101, which is probably what I'll call this video. I'm not editing the echo. In fact, I'm not editing this at all. I'll give it a thumbnail and I'll throw it up. Now we have more mush. It looks like a cartoon. I'm really not entirely sure why. So we can change the sampler to DPMM2MSDE and change the scheduler to Keras. That's not any better. It's really not liking this. It's encoding it. It's running it, but it's not liking it. So let's change the depth model. Maybe it's the control net. Again, control net issue. All right. We use depth ZO SDXL. Maybe that'll work. Well, that is quite a bit better. Still mushy. Now we know the problem's the control net. And this is a good example of what Comfy will do. This is why a lot of people have trouble with AI, because they run into something like this, a simple problem, and they don't understand the pipelines and how all of the pipelines work. If you're getting mush, Like right here, when you output something, the problem is in the pipeline somewhere. It could be the model, but so first thing I did was change the model, see what it did. Still outputted mush. Okay. Problem's probably not in the model pipeline. So then I thought, well, what about the clip? What about that? What about that pipeline? What about the conditioning pipeline? And I thought, well, you're positive and negative. That's really unlikely to cause mush because I didn't ask it to output mush, and I didn't give it conflicting things. Like I didn't put Viking woman in heavy armor in the positive and negative prompt, in which case it would say I'm supposed to make this, but I'm also not supposed to make this, which might output mush. So that's not the case. Where else could it be? Well, there's only one other place that it could be, and that's the control net, which is also on the clip pipeline or the conditioning pipeline, because the clip pipeline very quickly becomes the conditioning pipeline, and it is the same thing, essentially. So I thought, well, what else can I do? Well, change the control net model. Control nets for SDXL are notoriously bad. They work much better in SD15. So now we're going to delete this, and we're going to type in, double click to open this up, and type in Zo. And that Zo. And we're going to pull a Zo depth map, because that works with the Zo SDXL control net, or at least it should work better. And we're going to open this up. So, open image. It's opening in my web browser. That's actually a small image. It's 220 by 230. Enough. Okay. Alright, well that's not what I was trying to do, but hey, SDXL model is wrong for this, because the image is very small. So we're going to use counterfeit, and we're going to go back to, if I can type right, we're going to go back to an SD15 control net, specifically Control V11 F1P SD15 depth. That's the one that I use for pretty much everything. So, small image, use SD15. Big image, use SDXL. It's probably why we were getting mush. We're going to put some troubleshooting into this video, because why not? So right now, it's making a depth map, which should be pretty simple for it. And now it's outputting. Would you look at that? It's still kind of mushy. It's unrefined. It's small. But the problem that we're having now is that the image itself is really small. So when we gave it a gigantic model like SDXL, which makes much bigger things, it outputted mush. And we were able to fix some of that mush with a control net, but the actual problem was multi-pronged. It was two different things. It was, first of all, wrong model, because the model that it needed was not SDXL, it was SD15, because SD15 deals with small images. The picture needs to be more high res. This is a very, very low res picture. So let's see. Do I have any other pictures in here? Example.png. Oh, cool. So here's the actual example. This is stock Comfy example. And it should be 512 by 512, but I'll open image to make sure. Yeah, that's about, it's 768 by 768 actually. But that should still be fine for SD15. SD15 should be able to handle that. Anything much bigger, and you're going to run into problems. So it's going to depth map this, and what it's going to come up with is going to be probably real interesting. Yeah, that's strange, to say the least. But using the depth map, it's getting it. It's got the basics of it. So we'll switch the control net to, say, open pose. And we're going to get rid of this, and we're just going to send this straight to open pose. Oh, wait, it already did it on its own. Nice. We're going to see what that does. These are all basic things. None type of object has no attribute shape. This is good. So, the problem here is that this needs DW pose. It needs the DW pose estimator. And even then, it still might not work because the DW pose estimator might not find a pose in that. It might not recognize that as a person. It looks like the terminal's, for some reason, not showing output. But it might have a hard time. None type object has no attribute shape. Yeah, it has no idea what that is. So we'll go back to Black Widow. Now that, it should understand. Okay. That was my bad. Again, STXL model. And it's saying no shape because STXL would give you a... Not STXL. Open pose would give you a pose for a character, like where its arms, legs, and head are. But we'll see that in a second. That was my bad. Again, SD15 control nets with, well, SD15 control nets with SD15. Now let's run it. Hey, look at that. It worked. So open pose has given us, again, mush, because low res, very low res image. Resolution is very, very important. So we're going to do the example and see if it can get a pose out of that. It can. Aha! Now would you look at that? Much better. Much, much better. The resolution is very, very, very important. You have low resolution images, you get low resolution output. So garbage in, garbage out, if that makes any sense. And, you know, forgive me if I'm kind of not that great at this because it's been a very long time since I've built basic workflows. It's been months. So I'm going to get through this with some hiccups. But, again, Comfy has lots of hiccups. So it's really important to show you guys the hiccups you're going to run into as I run into them again while I'm rebuilding all of this basic stuff. With that, I am going to call this one Dunzo. This is Comfyui Wizarding 101. I'm Syncratic. I'll see you guys in the next one.